Hey everybody, I am back in Michigan, and boy have things changed since I was here. It's been almost 8 weeks, and the big thing is the weather. I got used to that Irish weather, which was pretty mild. Since I got back, it has been really cold. It's been fluctuating between a lot of rain and a lot of snow and lots of wind, so that has made working outside a little bit difficult, but I'm gonna kind of get back to my outside work. So later on today, I'm going to do a lot of outside cleanup. The staff has been very busy. So they've, like when I left the hydrangeas along the driveway, those were kind of all, in their kind of end of season prime. And now they're all trimmed back and cleaned up. So they look great, but they don't look like much. And then also like the annual pots, those have all been kind of cleaned out and put away for the season. And then lots has happened inside. So I'm going to just take you on a little walkabout and show you what has kind of changed since I was here before and how we're getting ready for winter. When I left, this area was still hydrangea heaven, so there are thousands of hydrangeas here, but we did sell a lot of them, and what we didn't sell, we actually put inside so that it was a little easier for staff to be able to trim them. So they started trimming, they're almost finished with those. So I'm just gonna pop in here and take a look at what we've got in here. So you can see quite a difference from before, but we also, this lets us kind of keep the color on the hydrangeas a little bit longer because we've been trimming these. We've got a special use for a lot of the hydrangea blooms, so we're going through that. We're also doing a lot of replanting. So you can see these are the Invincible Spirits. So this is an arborescent variety, so those have been cut back. And then there's like little Quickfires. There's lots more kind of scattered all over the place. Wait till you see Greenhouse 5, completely different. But you can see I love the blooms over here on these Quickfire fabs. This one is such a nice one because it blooms so early and then it gets this really nice color. So these are just kind of the last ones that still need to be trimmed, and so we're working on all those. We've got quite a few of the remaining perennials here in Greenhouse 2. These are going to end up getting moved outside for the winter, but for now we brought them here so that's nice and easy for the staff to either repot or to give them trim. So you can see a lot of stuff has been trimmed back for the winter. We're just kind of letting them hang out here for a little while. So you can see this is how we trim back the daylilies and a couple other plants as well. So, and then there's a lot of hydrangeas in the back there as well. Back here we have our hydrangea transplant area. So these wagons are all hydrangeas that are kind of in progress for transplanting. And then we've got kind of our bag of soil, which they're going to be getting a new one today. Our rice hulls, these platforms are used for doing the transplanting. And then these are some of the pots that we use for it. And we have to make sure that the certain varieties, like the proven winter varieties, go in proven winter pots, first editions go in first editions. And then we've also been planting them up into a lot of grow bags as well. So here in Greenhouse 5, we have more perennials. So over here is where we're keeping all of the heucheras. And heucheras are great because the leaves stay on throughout the winter. So you still get to enjoy this color. In the spring when the snow melts, these leaves will still be here. Now new leaves will start to emerge very quickly. So we usually keep them in here and we just cover them with a frost blanket. And the reason why we do that is so that in the springtime, the new growth starts, a little bit earlier than ones that we would keep outside. And that makes it a little easier for us to sell. Here are a couple of the perennial pots that we had planted kind of as an alternative to annual pots. They still look good even now, and it's been very cold in here. This is not a heated greenhouse right now, and we want to winter these over just to see how they do, to see how many years we can get out of these, because the fact that we could probably get 2 years out of these perennial pots before we have to plant them out into the ground really makes them a pretty good value. And then take a look at this. These are all the hydrangeas that have been transplanted, so it's a beautiful kind of collection in here. Just take a look at these. These are Pinky Winkies. So these are the ones that have turned color. These here, this one must have bloomed a little later, so we have a couple of them that haven't changed yet. They're just starting to blush. So it's just kind of interesting to take a look at that. But one thing you'll notice that we have a lot of them in these really large grow bags. So that's a little bit of a dilemma that we have, is that we're finding that our suppliers, a lot of them are only offering hydrangeas either in a really small 1 gallon size or in a 3 gallon. And 2 gallon tends to be one of our favorite sizes because it's affordable, it's easy to kind of work with, but it's getting harder and harder for us to get them in that size. So we're kind of remedying that for next year. But right now, that means we have a lot of these bigger sized hydrangeas. And we prefer to have them in 2 gallons because that's really easy for people to manage and the price is really good. So we're working on that for next year. But right now, now we have a lot of large hydrangeas, and boy, when I look at this one, this is a Quickfire. This is a great reason to get a Quickfire hydrangea because it is one of the panicle varieties that gets just some of the most intense fall color. And you're not seeing it so much in the flowers here too, but a lot of the other flowers that we had got even more of the red color. A lot of it has to do with the timing of kind of when we get our frosts and our snow and our freezes and that type of thing. So, but just a beautiful collection here. So like, look at some of these vanilla strawberries, great color on it. And then you can see some of them go brown, some of them get more of a color, and it really depends on kind of the conditions that are going on at the time when they're changing. Now over here, I want to show you this one here because this here is a little hottie, and this is a brand new hydrangea, and I want to show it to you because it's kind of quickly becoming one of our favorites for drying and for cut flowers because it has that smaller petal and a nice, more manageable kind of flower head. So this is one to think about if you're thinking of, you know, cutting back hydrangeas. And speaking of cutting back hydrangeas, we have been really kind of have a pretty big collection of cut hydrangeas. I'm going to show you a couple of those options, but yeah, take a look at these little hotties. I mean, those are just beautiful colors and just beautiful flower heads on those. But boy, look at some of them. It's just interesting because depending on where we've had them, whether they've been in a greenhouse or outside, they're at such different stages. So like this one looks like, you know, full on regular, you know, this could be, you know, August, and meanwhile these here, you know, are looking like, okay, we're really done for the season, ready to go to bed. But let me show you some of the cut hydrangeas we have. So my sister's been conducting some experiments on drying hydrangeas, and so she's trying different techniques. So that includes picking them and then hanging them. She's also doing the technique where you cut them and then put them in like an inch of water, and then you let the water kind of dry out. She's trying the different kinds. So she has a whole bunch of varieties, a lot of panicle varieties, but she's also trying some of the arborescens as well. Look at the size of this Pinky Winky. It's absolutely huge. And so it's just really nice to see, and it's nice too because I'm glad I get to sometimes recognize varieties. Like I think this one here is the Diamond Rouge, and then we look over here. I know this is pufferfish because pufferfish has its main flower, and then it sets off this kind of extra bloom over here. And then this one here is going to be, I bet, a Limelight Prime. And I can just tell, but just by looking at the plants here, looking over here. So these here are probably Pinky Winkies. These are probably Bobos, looking at that. And then I think these are more Diamond Rouge, or they could be White Diamonds. And then here, this is her new favorite one. These are the little hotties. And she loves them because the petals are really small and compact, so they are really nice for arranging and drying, and the color gets pretty good on them. You can just see some of them are getting just such beautiful pink colors on them. Some of them get more of that mauve or kind of the purples on it. It's just really nice to see. These are probably, I'm guessing, some more of the Limelight Primes. And this one here is a White Diamond, so that one's just looking really beautiful. We'll see how they dry. I think these are more recent here. She also has another way that she's trying. So she's also just kind of tucking them in this bench just to see what happens. I don't know if this is actually a legit way to do it. So these are like some Quickfires, and what she's finding with the Quickfires is that these were really quite mauve or red when she put them in here, but they kind of tend more to get more purple. Some of them turn more brown depending on the condition of the bloom. So she's just testing that out. But then she's also got some of these. Now these were, they've been in here for quite a few days, but they don't feel papery yet, so they're definitely not dry. But she just wanted to try this technique too, just to see how it goes. And part of the reason why she's doing this is we have a relative who is also a former employee who's getting married, and they're going to be using hydrangeas next spring, dried hydrangeas. So this is kind of to do that, but also just for our own research. Look at these. I think these are Invincible Spirits. So these aren't holding up very well in this method, but sometimes the arborescents, it really depends on when you pick them. But just kind of a fun experiment. We have tons and tons of hydrangeas that we have to cut, and so next year we're looking at either having workshops or having them available for sale. Just to give you an idea, let me show you our compost area. So this is our compost pile of hydrangea cuttings. So you can see it just keeps going and going and going and going. You can see the earlier piles have already really started to break down, turned, you know, really brown. I think these were also from the hydrangeas that were outside. So these were a lot farther along. They had already lost their color. They got hit with an early freeze, and so they weren't as pink as many of these other ones. But it's interesting just looking through here. Looking through our trash is probably one of the most interesting things. So I can tell these are all Quickfires. flowers. I can tell by those red leaves and the type of flower they have. Over here, we probably have bobos is what I'm guessing. So it's just fun to, maybe I sound like a freak for saying this, but it's fun to look through our trash or our compost. These here are probably invincible spirits or one of those varieties. Just really, and these are going to be all probably Annabelles over here. I can tell by the leaf and by the flowers. So just kind of interesting to look at our compost. One of the biggest changes that happened is here in Greenhouse 3, and it's a change that the general public is never going to even notice, but it's going to make a big difference for us. So we replaced this wall with this poly product. It was a solid wall before with insulation. Now it lets light through, and even though it's facing the north side and it doesn't get direct sunlight, it is going to make a really big difference with the amount of light that comes in to this kind of section of the greenhouse. While we were doing this entire roof of this greenhouse has been replaced. And so that's a really big job. It's been about 18 years since we had it replaced, which is well past the lifespan of the material that was used. So we're lucky that it held up this long. But what people might not realize is that in greenhouses in general, no matter what material you're using, whether it's glass or some kind of plastic product, no matter what you're using, it does affect the quality of the light coming through. So no matter how new it is or how good it is, it does change the properties of the light, which can be a problem because as it got older, it was starting to get a little yellowy, and that was definitely reducing kind of the, I don't know if it was the UV or whatever, the quality of light. And so we are going to really have to be careful next spring because we're going to be getting a lot more light coming through. So we're going to have to be careful that we don't burn some of the plants, or that we're keeping an eye on watering, because that's going to change the amount of watering that we're going to need. But we'll be able to adjust that pretty easily. But it's just incredible to come in here, and like I said, the general public are not going to notice, but this was a very big job. This is a large greenhouse, and so we got this all done. So we're looking forward to it. But boy, it's just interesting to come in here. Now right now the greenhouse is still a mess. We have all our tools and things, but those are things that we can work on over the winter, so we're not too worried about that. The big thing was getting this roof done before the bad weather came in, and it'll be great. Next spring, going to be a completely new kind of environment for us to work in, even though it's exactly the same as what we've had for years. But it's great to have this project done. It's something we've been talking about for the last couple years, because we knew at a certain point that plastic was just, going to really not get the job done. So now, all brand new. Still have a lot of patching to do too, like along the top there, we got to get that all kind of closed in. But that, like I said, that's all stuff that we can do, over the winter, and we're not too worried about it. Out here in the tree and shrub area, things look like they're really, not doing great, but actually we're in pretty good shape. So like over here we have the roses. These haven't been trimmed yet. We always wait until the roses lose their leaves. But you can see these Easy Elegance roses are still going, like they're just winding down now. So that's just been a constant bloomer for us. And then over here in the hosta house, we still have some hostas left. So these are the ones we're going to winter over. You can see hostas die right back. So we're going to trim off all those leaves and dispose of those, because we don't want to foster any home for bugs and snails and things. We did trim back our hardy hibiscus, and we trim them back pretty low. Normally you'd recommend giving them a little bit more space, like maybe 6 to 8 inches if you're going to trim them in the winter. You can also trim them in the spring, and then you go back in later on next year when they're completely dead. And the reason for that is, if you look, these stems are hollow, and that hollow stem, sometimes water can get in there and then it can freeze the crown. So we haven't had a real problem with that, and we know that we're going to be moving these into the hillside greenhouse for the winter, just because we want to just kind of avoid that, and it also reduces one round of trimming for us. So we're doing it for efficiency's sake. Then these are some of the shrubs. These have gotten, the ones that needed trimming got trimmed. I'll do a trimming video just to go over what we do trim and what we don't. But while I was out here, I wanted to show you the color on these blueberries. I forget how beautiful blueberry bushes get in the fall. That is just a beautiful, intense red color. You can tell the wind really did a number out here, but just fantastic. A couple other brightly colored ones, and ones that I love in the fall. So over here, this is a winterberry, and look at the color of this. This is the golden one. So this one's berry heavy gold, but look at the fantastic color on there. And you'll notice it's only at this time that you can tell the difference. So you can tell that which plants is the male and which is the female. So down here, this is the male plant, doesn't get berries. This is the female plant. A lot of times people don't sell them kind of potted in one. We do it just because people get so confused. But you can see this berry heavy gets so many berries on it that you can really get away with it and you don't notice that the other one doesn't even have any berries. The privet is holding on to its leaves pretty well, but look at the beautiful gold color. Those got knocked down in the wind. But then take a look at, this is some barberry. That has some pretty berries on it. Love that. Let's see. Oh, over here, this is the Fothergilla. Man, this plant, another one with fantastic fall color. I absolutely love it. It is a zone 5, so we have to kind of make sure it's in a little bit of a protected spot, but take a look at how, I love how, okay, so it gets the dark kind of burgundy leaves, it gets red, it gets orange, it gets yellow. It'll have every color on it. These are what's left of the burning bushes, but those all lost their leaves. And take a look at the juniper berries. These things are absolutely covered in berries, and this variety is called Fairview. I believe this one's Fairview as well. Yeah, so this is the Fairview variety, but most of the junipers get all these berries on them. Really fantastic. This area here are all the plants that we got in as little baby quart plants. We planted up probably, I think it was July when we got them in. And so now they're starting to go dormant, but boy, the Woodgilla, that has really grown a lot. All the hydrangeas have lost their leaves. Now these are going to be in really good shape next season. Right now, they're going to look a little scrawny, but they spent this season producing roots. And so next season, they're going to be able to do a little bit more growth above. We have a combination, like there's the Woodgilla here. These are going to be panicle hydrangeas. Those are either macrophylla or serrata hydrangeas. So we're going to clean out all these dead leaves later on. We're going to let them die back first though. So it's just kind of interesting to look at all those. And then we do need to start doing a cleanup over here in the hillside greenhouse, because this is where we winter over a lot of our plants. We don't have to. All of our plants could easily survive outside, but we find it's easier for pest management to be able to get them in here, close it up, and get our cage around it so that the deer and the rabbits and the voles don't get in here, because they're kind of our biggest enemy this time of year. So we got some cleanup to do in here, and then we'll be moving all the evergreens also to the evergreen area, which will be outside. So lots to do. Okay, so that's kind of where things are at right now. I just wanted to kind of give you this little tour. I am going to be doing a lot of work over the next couple days. I'm only here for a couple days before I have to go back on the road, but I want to get as much done as I can. So I'll try to keep you updated, but hey, here's a peek at where things are at right now. Keep an eye out for some of the fall cleanup and fall projects that we're doing as well.